Okay, well, maybe we'll go ahead and get started, and people will trickle in either via Zoom or they'll come into the classroom. Everyone see my screen okay? Okay, I'm gonna unmute everyone for a second. Are people seeing the screen okay?
Yeah.
Okay, super. Okay, great. So if people could remute themselves again, please, just to reduce background noise. Okay, perfect. So, all right, today is the first class meeting for the Trellis Fund seminar. This is the agenda. So, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and manually mute people because there's some background noise. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so today we are gonna go, hi. Are you Claire? Yeah. Welcome. Great, we're just getting started, so great timing. So the agenda for today, for the next hour and a half, we are gonna go over what the seminar is gonna look like over the next 10 weeks. We're gonna do brief student introductions. We're gonna go through some of the fellowship requirements and logistics. There won't be a formal Q&A time, but if you have questions, feel free to just kind of ask. Don't feel shy about interrupting. And then we're going to end today with some of our colleagues from the Horticulture Innovation Lab coming in to speak more about some of the technologies and resources that we offer from UC Davis. The learning objectives are up here, so you can look at those because I'll make sure everyone is shared, has access to these slides. But okay, so I'm going to go ahead and no, not yet. I will show everyone how to access all of the resources. So here's an overview of what the 10-week seminar is going to look like. Okay, it seems like there's still, I'm going to go ahead and mute some more people here. If people don't mind muting themselves, it'll be better that way. Can't tell where it's coming from. Okay. So we're going to meet every Wednesday until March 14th for an hour and a half from 12:30 to 2 Pacific time. I know we have people in all time zones. We have a fellow from Hawaii. We have some on the East Coast. So we're really kind of juggling time zones here, but hopefully this is working for everyone. For people on the UC Davis campus, we'll be meeting here for now, here in the Plant Reproductive Biology conference room. The room might change. We're working with the administrators to figure that out. But for non-UC Davis students, they'll be connecting remotely through Zoom. And then throughout the quarter, there may be a few other International Ag Development Master students attending sessions kind of on an ad hoc basis based on the topic. So everyone from UC Davis is able, hi.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's a little hard to find.
No problem. What's your name?
Stuart.
Stuart, great. Okay, so everyone from UC Davis has the option to take it as a 1-credit seminar listed under PLS 290 in Schedule Builder, and the CRN is listed up there. I'm happy to chat with you at another time, like after this session or otherwise if you're having issues registering. And then all the sessions will be recorded and posted for future reference. Attendance is mandatory, so part of the requirement for the fellowship is that you attend all of the sessions. If you foresee a conflict in the future, better to let me know as soon as possible, and then we can arrange to make sure you watch the recording and then do some written responses to some reflection questions. But in general, we'd like all the fellows to attend all of the sessions. And then throughout the quarter, we'll be covering, I've listed some of the topics here. I'm not going to go and read the list, but basically it's some qualitative research methods, a lot on project management, so like monitoring and evaluation. We'll have 2 sessions on, and then we're going to have practitioners and sort of experts in the field come in and deliver these sessions. So we're really trying to take advantage of the folks in our network to share with everyone about their area of expertise. So now we're going to move into introductions. And I know we have a lot of fellows and not a lot of time. So I'm going to ask everyone to keep it really short, like under a minute. If you could share your name, the title or basic topic of your project, the organization you're going to be working with, and the country. And then Asha and I are also going to introduce ourselves. So I will start. I think everyone's received emails from me. My name is Lauren Howe, and I'm a first-year International Ag Development Master student here at UC Davis. And I'm managing the Trellis Fund project as my 50% GSR. I'm also working on a trellis project this year. It's on sweet potato leaves for improved family nutrition, working with the NGO Send a Cow Ethiopia. Asha, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm on Zoom or is it right now?
Okay, let me see if I can mute myself.
I
muted myself.
Maybe we should just do it. I'll do it on yours.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Okay, is it unmuted? Yeah. Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone. My name's Asha Sharma. I'm also a first-year International Agricultural Development Master's student with Lauren here at UC Davis. And I'm also doing a graduate student researcher position at the Horticulture Innovation Lab. I'm actually 50% on the Trellis Fund with Lauren, and then 50% of my time is spent doing monitoring and evaluation work for the lab. But I'll actually be the main point of contact moving forward for the seminar. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to send them my name. Hopefully my email is probably somewhere in the binder of information.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yes. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, concerns at all, and looking forward to working with everyone.
Thanks, Asha. Okay, so I actually have a list of students and projects here. So just for the sake of time, I'm going to call your name out, and then if you could introduce yourself, that would be great. So first, Krishna, do we have you on?
Hi, my name is Krishna. I'm based at Southeast at University of Florida. I am a second-year Ph.D. student, and I will be working on a project at Kira Town Council, Waukesha District, and the project is on promoting irrigation, improving post-harvest handling, and value addition to mushrooms and tomato growing farmers in Kira Town Council, Waukesha District, and the organization that I'll be working with is Environmental Conservation and Agriculture Enhancement Uganda.
Great, thanks, Krishna. We have a team of 2 from UF as well, Ranjit and Raminder. Are you both on?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Raminder Kaur. It's nice to meet you all here. And I'm a first-year PhD student in Agriculture and Biological Engineering Department in University of Florida. I'll be working with Ranjit Singh Randhawa on Nidwami Integrated Rescue Project of value addition training of smallholder fruits and vegetable farmers in Kianamuka and Buvangu Subdistrict Masaka project in Uganda. We will be working along with NIRP project coordinators, Mr. Godfrey, and organization manager, Mr. Henry, to train 100 farmers in modern food processing and value addition of food products. We will also build farmer association and establish processing plant to process and package food, juices, squashes, jams, etc., and link them to food industries for marketing. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Raminder. Ranjit, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, hello everyone. This is Ranjit Randhawa, and I'm a first-year PhD student at horticulture department at University of Florida. Additionally, I'm doing masters in agribusiness alongside PhD. And as Ravinder told, you will be working together on NIRP project in Uganda, which is primarily focused on training of small farmers and farmers and women's on value addition of pineapples, tomatoes, and other fruits. Yeah, I think
Great.
that would be all from my side because Raminda told you most about the project. Thanks.
Thank you. Next we have Russell.
Sure, thanks. Hello, everybody. My name is Russell Galanti. I am a second-year master's student at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, but I am stationed on the Big Island under Dr. Alyssa Cho. My project is the promotion of mulching technology. It's occurring in the Arumeru district of northern Tanzania, and even though it's primarily on mulching, it's also going to be the theoretical and practical training of farmers on pretty much nursery management, seed establishment, mulching, fertilization, all around agriculture. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Russell. Next we have Carla, who's in the room with us.
Should I move on?
Yeah, if it's okay. I know it's like, we'll hopefully only have to do this once where we play musical chairs around the room.
You need to read this title.
No, it's okay. The titles are long.
Maybe
Yeah,
here. Hello, everybody. My name is Carla Huerta. I'm from Mexico. I'm a fourth-year graduate student, PhD graduate student here at UC Davis, working in viticulture and in enology. My project's going to be based in Uganda, and it's called Fruit Farming and Income Generating and Nutrition, which basically is training women in pest control and improving nutrition, and what else? And I guess that's it.
Thank you. Next we have Claire, also from UC Davis, who's going to come around to my computer here and introduce herself.
Hi guys, my name is Claire Atkinson. I'm a first year horticulture and agronomy PhD student here at UC Davis. And I do post-harvest pomology. I'll be working in Uganda with the Teso Women's group on mango and orange value addition. So nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Next we have Sidra from the University of Florida. I don't know if we have Sidra on here. So we'll go to the next person and maybe she'll join in after. We have Annabelle from UC Davis.
Hi, I'm Annabelle. I'm a fourth year PhD student in the microbiology, within the food science and technology department, and I'm working on enhancing shelf life of fruits and vegetables for off-season supply by small scale farmers. So the idea is to sort of make their products last longer so they don't go bad. And I'm going to be doing this in Uganda with the Minwo group.
Thanks, Annabelle. We have Nataraja from NC State. Nataraja, I think you're muted. We also can't see your video. Okay, I will just say briefly that you are from North Carolina State and you'll be working with Ithos Incorporated on a Kiwi agribusiness project in Nepal. So sorry about the technical difficulties there. Next, we have Sarup from the University of Florida. Okay, I don't think we have Sarup on either. Hopefully people are not struggling to connect to Zoom. Sarup will be working with Tip Top Foods, which is a small company in Ghana, looking at biochar for improving sandy depleted soils. Let's see. Kishitij from the University of Florida. I saw your name on here.
So my name is Kshitij Khatri. I'm a second year PhD student in horticulture science at the University of Florida. I'm based at Gulf Coast Research and Education Center, and I will be working on extending good agriculture practices, especially the vegetable production, to the farmers in Rwanda. And my host organization is University of Florida, University of Rwanda College of Agriculture.
Thank you. Prosanta?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So my name is Prashanto K. Dash. I'm third year PhD student under Department of Horticultural Sciences, University of Florida. So here I'm working on try to mitigate heat stress in strawberry, but my project will go on Ghana, that enhancing vegetable productivity through effective irrigation and transplanting techniques. I'll work with University of Cape Coast and give some training to farmer how to efficiently use water through drip irrigation system. Yeah, I'm from Bangladesh. Yeah.
Thank you. Great. Next we have Claire from UF.
Hello, I'm a third year PhD student in soil and water science, and I'll be working with Kita in Ghana, looking at organic weed and pest management.
Great. Thanks, Claire. And lastly, we have Stuart from UC Davis.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stuart Wilson. I'm a PhD candidate in soils and biogeochemistry. I'm also a master's student in geography and GIS. I'll be working on integrated nutrient and pest management for improving smallholder farmers in Nepal. So a lot of sustainable management stuff, and that's for the Center for Agricultural Research and Development in Nepal. So thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. Okay, so I'm gonna keep moving right along. In case you didn't catch people's names, organizations, project titles, etc., all of the information will be available to you written. So we'll make sure you have that for future reference. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to this PowerPoint here. And if it's okay, I'm gonna keep it in this view just so I can navigate between screens here. So we're gonna go through some of the fellowship requirements. And these are kind of rough timelines. The next few, I think it's the next 2 slides. I say 4 to 6 months before you travel, and that's kind of loose. Basically, the earlier the better on these tasks. We have some students who might travel as early as April or May, and then some might go like next November. So it'll be everyone's responsibility to stay on top of what you have to do, but these are just some rough guidelines. So the first thing we recommend is to immediately check to see if your passport is up to date, because it can take time to renew that. Most countries, to get your visa, require that it's valid for at least 6 months beyond the day you intend to return to the United States. So check on that. I have a bunch of links in this PowerPoint that you'll have access to, but we've created this visa requirement doc where I've essentially skimmed through a bunch of different websites, namely the US State Department, also some individual country embassies. But you can refer to this just for a quick view of your country and what the visa requirements are. So I'll just use Ethiopia as an example. So it costs about $70 for a multiple entry or single entry, and then it's up to 2 years. And you can get it either through the embassy before you arrive, or you can actually get it on arrival at the airport. So some countries require that you get your visa ahead of time. Others, you can get it just at your point of landing. And then I believe most countries require yellow fever vaccination. So there's a column here. And if there are special links, I've tried to put them here. So for your country embassy or something like that. Note that this information is for US citizens. Some costs might be different if you're an international student. So I just recommend everyone to look into their own visa requirements. And that table is just for your reference. So I pasted a link here to the US State Department website. So UC Davis uses this great World Q travel planner. It's a website that you can look further into the country you'll be traveling in. So for example, you put in your school, it'll ask you to log in. All the schools, Florida, NC State, and Hawaii, and Davis all are registered through this. So you should be able to get into this no problem. But this is a great kind of all-around resource for checking things around local customs, security, and travel advisories. It's being a little slow to load right now. So this is the World Q Travel Planner. Yeah, and everyone will have this PowerPoint as well, so you should be able to click the links. So I'm not going to go into that because it's taking too long to load, but that's just a resource that's available to you, and we recommend poking around the website, researching your country a little more, just because past fellows have recommended that the more prepared you are as far as just knowing kind of what to expect and reading more about the culture ahead of time can be helpful, just to make it less jarring upon arrival. We have so there's a link here as well. So I've linked to the CDC website for you to check vaccination requirements and then any travel or health advisories. We recommend that you schedule a travel consultation either with your primary care provider or your campus health center immediately. We recommend you to get your vaccinations done early because some of them, I think typhoid maybe, require multiple doses over several weeks. So it's just better to get that done ahead of time so you're not scrambling right before you leave. Make sure that you're covered by health insurance while you're abroad. So I think it's no issue for UC Davis students who are under student health, but other campuses and even UC Davis students, probably just worth it to call the number on your health insurance card just to verify that while you're abroad, you'll be covered in case of a medical or health emergency. Also, I know it's like we're starting off with things that sound really intense, but I'm just kind of getting some of the logistical things out of the way early, and then we'll talk more about the projects. So don't be alarmed. I'm just trying to cover all the bases here. So I pasted a link here to the latest US State Department updates to see if your country has any security alerts or warnings. I think actually Ethiopia is the only country right now that does, and I'm going there, so I don't think anyone else has to worry, but I encourage you just to check the list because it changes pretty frequently. Every few weeks or months, the State Department will make updates on that. I wanted to put a quick note in here just to remind everyone that in case you're using this Trellis project for any kind of research purposes, like for your thesis or capstone or dissertation, if you'll use any of the data, you'll need to make sure you're covered by the Institutional Review Board for Research Ethics. And there's a link later on that you can assess if your project requires IRB approval. But I just wanted to put that on everyone's radar. We also have some links I'll share with you on travel policies and guidelines. UC Davis has a lot of extensive resources, probably too many, actually, it's like a little overwhelming. And then partner universities may have similar policies and guidelines which you can look into, but you're also more than welcome to reference the UC Davis ones. Are there any questions on these 8 things before I keep moving ahead?
For visas, do we just get a tourist visa or is it something else?
Yeah, good question. So Annabelle asked if Trellis students should get a tourist visa or another type of visa. I would recommend, so look into your country specifics. Some have very clear explanations that say you cannot volunteer, you can't like do anything else but like for fun if you're going to be on a tourist visa. And so they might suggest getting like a work visa or a research visa. But I would say probably in 80% of the cases, Trellis students have been fine going on a tourist visa because you're only there for a couple of weeks. It's really short term. And the process for getting work visas and other types is often more complicated. So we recommend not doing that unless you have to, like unless your country is super strict about it. If you have questions, feel free to email me and I'll work through it with you to see what the best option is for everyone. That's a good question. Does anyone else have any questions on 1 through 8 right now? No, okay, great. So these are still 4 to 6 months before you travel roughly. There's some resources in here as far as a travel checklist, so things you should do ahead of time. We recommend that everyone registers with the local embassy by enrolling in the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, which is called STEP. And that helps us in case of an emergency. It's easier for us to be able to find you and for the local embassy to know you're there. And it's just a good way to precaution against any kind of emergency. At least 6 weeks before you travel, we require you to fill out a travel request in PyStar. And I'll show everyone how to do that. PyStar is the same platform that you applied to be a fellow on, so it should be a little familiar with you, but I'll walk everyone through it. We'll book your preferred flights for you, so you don't need to worry about booking any of your travel, but we will ask you to let us know like your preferred date and time and things like that. Students are responsible for booking your own lodging. So your organization should provide options for you, whether it's a hotel or local guest house. In some cases, we've had students stay with families in a homestay situation. Best to talk to your host organization about that because they'll have the good ideas about possible accommodation. And then just a note here that lodging and meals should be modest. So like no 5-star hotels, unfortunately. For supplemental items that your project might require as you're working through things, we have some funding set aside for students to apply for an additional, what we're calling the supplemental fellowship. So this is for $200 to $499. And we've had students use this for, to purchase time and space in a greenhouse if you want to run trials, or to pay for a professional development training course, or soil testing kits, or reference materials if you want to bring like books with you to keep and give to your organization. It's essentially just for unforeseen expenses that crop up as you're working on the project. And so that application will be due at least a month before you travel. And lastly, we just recommend talking to your cell phone provider early about international rates and trying to figure out what option might be the best for you to be able to use your phone while. So in some cases, purchasing a local SIM card is easier and better for interacting with your organization. In other cases, if you can pay $50 or something to get a month of international data. So call your cell phone provider to find out more about that. Do we have any questions on 9 through 14 right now? Okay. And it looks like we had Sarup join us as well. Great. Okay, I'm gonna keep moving here. It's a lot of information, but hopefully if you have questions, feel free to reach out afterwards.
I do have a question.
So, yeah.
So for the travel planning and asking you for booking flights, if we want to take advantage of being in a country and take extra time, how do we talk with you guys about that without making it your cost for us to be there?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to take some time maybe after my program to visit some sites in my country.
Yeah, and we absolutely encourage that.
Okay.
For it. Because Trellis will pay for the flights to and from, it doesn't really matter to us how long you're there for. Like if you want to extend your trip for like a month or two,
okay.
The only thing is we will only pay for food and accommodation for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, no problem.
Anytime in country after that time, Sam, would just be on personal money. But we're happy to book flights. Last year we had a student from Nigeria doing a project in Ghana, so he extended so he could go home, and like it was no problem. Just
okay.
Let us know.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions so far? Okay, great. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is that per individual project, or would that be like competitive around all projects?
Yeah, great question. So the question was, is the supplemental fellowship available to everyone, or is it competitive among projects? It's available to everyone. So any individual who wants to apply for the extra money can do that. And I just pulled up the application here. It's pretty simple. I list some of the things you can buy with it. And then there's also a list of ineligible things based on USAID requirements, and like, don't buy things on Amazon or eBay because of our policies. But then it's a pretty simple, you just tell us the amount you're requesting, briefly describe what you intend to do with the extra funds, and then a line item for the budget with a budget justification. So that's pretty straightforward. Any other questions? Okay, great. So now that we've gone through some of the things that are required kind of at the beginning of your project, 4 to 6 months before you travel, I'm going to go through the bulk of what's required once your project really gets off the ground and starts going. So for now, I mentioned the Trellis seminar, being here every week for an hour and a half. And then we also have a pre-survey and a post-survey. I'll make sure everyone gets links to this, but before we meet next time, I think I put the wrong date in here. Let's see. Basically, before we meet next time, I'd like everyone to complete the pre-survey, which will just ask you, assess your baseline knowledge around the topic we're going to cover. And then the post-survey is just the same questions to see if your knowledge level has changed based on the content. And we'll send you those links. And then if you miss a class, you'll have to submit written responses to the reflection questions or any other assignments. There won't be a ton of work outside the seminar. Occasionally a lecturer might ask you to read something ahead of time or come prepared with a little bit of info, but primarily it will just be when we meet. Yes, yeah, I'll show you that, yeah. Yes, so Stuart just asked if there's a website where all the course material can be accessed, and we're gonna put everything on PyStar. So we're not gonna do Canvas or anything. We're gonna keep it all in one place. We'll ask you to fill out monthly reports on PyStar for your active project months. So I'll go through that after. I'll just pull up the website and we'll go through it a little bit together. And that will just ask you on a monthly basis what kind of activities you've been doing, how many hours have you logged, just so we can keep track, since every student has to complete 100 hours to complete their fellowship. We'll ask you during and before your trip to keep all of your receipts. It's just easier to keep in mind, always keep receipts for reimbursement later. So that's for everything from visa and passport expenses to lodging, vaccines, things like that. Anything project related we'll cover. Ongoing communication with your host organization. So everyone should have received an email with their organization copied, introducing you, and hopefully you'll all get a chance to speak with them either via email or Skype, WhatsApp over the next couple weeks as projects start to get off the ground. But we encourage ongoing regular communication just to manage expectations on both ends and figure out what responsibilities the student will have and things like that. We are going to ask every student to work with their organization to create and submit a monitoring and evaluation matrix. So this actually is a requirement for the organizations to get their second phase of funding. So right now we've dispersed 2,000 to all of the organizations, and by project midterm, they'll hopefully, they've gotten far enough along on their project that they'll receive the rest of the funding, another 2,000. But to get that, they also need to submit their M&E plan to show the systematic evaluation around the project. We have a template of interview questions, and we'll talk more about this in a couple weeks during the participatory action research and interview session during the seminar. But basically, we encourage students to speak with your organization to learn more about what is their larger mission, what is the agricultural situation in their country, what are the activities they're doing as an organization, just so you can have a little bit more of a holistic understanding of what you're working on. And we're going to ask you to
Those interview questions are something that you already created.
Yeah, we have the interview questions already written up, but we actually might have the instructor who's doing the interview session work with us to make them better, to improve them. So the document we have now is kind of a rough starting point that might be modified.
Cool.
And then lastly on here, number 7, next week we'll have our communication staff person from the Horticulture Innovation Lab come in and talk more about logos and branding. But basically some of the communications requirements, if you're extension materials or making a video or something, we just need to make sure all the logos and the language is branded properly. And we have a guideline for that you can refer to. Are there any questions on 1 through 7 here?
Yes. So
Yes.
every Trellis Fund participant had from January to March that they're going to be creating a monitoring and evaluation plan. Correct?
Yeah, so the monitoring and evaluation plan, when I say it's due at midterm, the tricky part about all these projects is they're operating on slightly different timelines. So some are beginning right in January and may go straight to June and just be 6 months right at the beginning. Others may really start moving more in like March or April and extend into November, and some may take the full year, January to December. So we're going to ask you to really work on getting a solid draft of your monitoring and evaluation matrix before the end of the seminar, since we'll have 2 sessions devoted to that. But we understand there's sometimes maybe lag time in communicating with your organization and getting all the information you need to get the matrix done. So we'd like a draft by the end of the seminar, with the understanding that it's always kind of a work in progress.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Great. Okay. So this is getting a little closer to your travel time, right around a month before you leave. Every fellow will need to fill out an emergency preparedness plan and sign an MOU. And that's basically just your standard waiver of liability waiver, to say that you'll try not to do silly things to put yourself in danger unnecessarily, and that you won't hold UC Davis accountable. We will ask you to confirm and let us know your travel itinerary and housing arrangements. We suggest that you research basic living conditions for your country and become familiar with some of the local cultures and culture and customs. I pasted a couple links here on like cultural etiquette and business etiquette. We will ask you to compile and scan your travel documents, not only for us, but for yourself as well. It's good to keep copies of all of these things with a friend at home, with you, like multiple copies on you while in country, and then send to us, just so we can have that on file. We have a couple links here on for a packing list, a sample like travel health kit, just some things that'll hopefully help guide your preparation. Well, the whole team came. Hi guys. You're a little early, but you can either hang out there or come in here, whatever you want.
We'll hang out in here.
So we just had some colleagues from the Horticulture Innovation Lab join us, and they'll be speaking in about 15-20 minutes about more of the resources that our program offers. Okay, so just a couple other notes here. If you want to purchase some little gifts for your hosts or come with postcards, things like that, we recommend that you research ATM access in country before you go. So for most people, sometimes you can only pay in cash when you're traveling abroad. So making sure you have cash on you or getting out the proper amount at the airport, things like that. A note here to download any mobile apps you might need ahead of time if you need to deal with banking stuff while you're abroad. Setting up international service with your phone provider, again, finalizing that before you travel. And then telling your bank or credit card company that you're going overseas so they don't freeze your cards. That's really important, since fellows will be paying for a lot out of pocket, and we'll just reimburse you when you get back. Are there any more questions for what we've gone over so far, especially on this immediate pre-travel advice? Okay, great. So this is during your trip. Again, keep all receipts so you can get reimbursed when you get back. We recommend, well, we'll ask you to scan copies, so just keep all receipts. It's a good practice. We'll ask you to bring, hopefully, a phone or a camera with you so you can take and share photos about your trip, and then also videos. And so this is like just a small, maybe 30-second, 1-minute clips about your project to help capture what's going on, and then also share your story about what you're doing with your host organization as part of your Trellis project. And then obviously during your trip, whatever the organization has outlined for you as part of your activities, whether it's delivering a training, having community conversations with farmers, things like that. After your trip, we will ask you to submit a travel report in PyStar. So that will be some of the logistical reporting, like where were you, who did you meet, but then there are also some more anecdotal questions around what was challenging about your trip, what was rewarding, things like that. We'll host a debrief meeting with you, either in person, if you're at UC Davis, and if I'm around this summer, and then, or via Zoom. And we may ask your permission to write a blog post about your story. So keep an eye out for that. We'll ask you to fill out a reimbursement request form and expense report spreadsheet so you can get reimbursed. And we have links for all of these documents so you know how you can get paid for what you've purchased. And we'll ask you to send those directly to our administrator, Beatrice. All of the project deliverables we'd like a copy of. So if you've developed extension materials or delivered a training and have a PowerPoint, if you can put those up on PyStar, we'll add those to our website as part of our resource library. Upload photos and videos. And then lastly, submitting a final report. So that'll be a short 2 to 3 page answering, I think it's 10 questions reflecting on your overall Trellis experience. And that's really good for us in terms of improving the program for future to get feedback from students. And then to receive your $300 completion stipend, you'll need to have logged 100 hours, submitted all your deliverables and reports, and then attend all of the Trellis sessions, seminar sessions, and then we'll put in for your check to be cut. Are there any questions about during or after your trip and what the project requirements are, at least from the Trellis side? It'll vary from organization to organization.
You had mentioned tracking your hours.
Yeah, so tracking your hours, that will be a link in PyStar, and that'll be your monthly report. And so we'll remind you every month, we'll send you a link to it, but we'll just ask you to tell us how many hours you've done in that month and what the activities were. There's some feedback.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, how I can get access from 5 stars? Can you send me the link or?
Yes, so that's actually the next thing I was going to go through here was how to navigate PyStar. And I'm in the process of creating accounts for everyone. Hopefully it'll be done by the end of this week, but if not, early next week. I think I've created one so far for Krishna as a test, but we'll make sure that you all have access to PyStar before the next Trellis seminar session.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, great. Okay, so I'm gonna go on PyStar right now to show you. So it's our project management, data tracking, and evaluation system. And this is where you'll log your monthly reports. You'll put in your travel request. You'll upload documents. And so I'm emulating Krishna right now. So as if I were him, this is what the home page, the landing page looks like. And really paying attention to this helpful links module here on the right. I'll just go through some of these briefly so you kind of know what's up there. But everything I went through in today's presentation is in this document called Trellis Fund Grant Instructions and Timeline for Students. So this will be kind of one of the really important documents you'll want to maintain during your project, and it has more detailed explanation of things I touched on today with links. So that is there. We have this contact list. So this has a list of all of the students and the project titles, the organization, the country, also the local PIs, their contact information is there. And there's a second tab here with contact information for the program administrators. So I have my own contact information here, Asha's, and a few other people you might interact with. We ask that most emails get sent to trellisfund@ucdavis.edu instead of personal emails, just so we can keep the program content separate. So this is available. We have two different documents. I alluded to this, but the emergency preparedness and planning forms, we'll just need everyone to fill this out at least 10 days before you travel. And it has the waiver of liability attachment. We'll ask you to fill out an emergency contact form. Everything's here, but I think one note here is that we'll ask you to send us a copy of your passport photo page, but unfortunately, you can't email it to us because email is not encrypted, but I've listed my cell phone number here so you can WhatsApp message it to me because that's an encrypted messaging service, just so we have that on file for booking your flight. And there's a separate form for UC Davis students and then another one for non-UC Davis students, just because there are slight differences in university policy. So you want to make sure you fill out the appropriate form. I already showed you the visa requirements doc. And then this is all information on the fellow expense policy and reimbursement documents. So I talked about this a little bit, but we will purchase airfare for everyone, and then you'll get reimbursed for everything else, like lodging, meals, and incidental expenses. So that includes visa and passport fees, vaccinations, any travel medication, cell phone or internet access, taking like an Uber or Lyft or taxi to the airport from home. As long as you keep your receipts, we'll be able to reimburse you. Just a note here that we can't cover any non-project expenses. So for example, if you're going to East Africa and want to go on safari, we will not reimburse you for that. And that sounds ridiculous, but we've had students request that they get reimbursed for something like that, and like we just can't do that. So sorry. And we've had students take side trips to visit family. So anything outside the 2-week specifically project related, we cannot reimburse you for. A note here that the partner organization should cover all in-country project-related travel. So visiting your field site, transportation to and from the airport, the host organization should cover that, and they know that. If for whatever reason they don't do it or something comes up and you have to pay for it, keep the receipt and we'll reimburse you for that. If you're unsure about expenses, like how much food or SIM cards cost in country, your organization will be your best resource for figuring out that. Let's see. These are the two documents I talked about, the reimbursement request form that you'll fill out and the expense report spreadsheet. And then I'm gonna pull up here the printable. So in some countries, it's challenging to get receipts because it's just not a common practice. And so if you're taking a taxi and they just won't give you a receipt, we recommend printing out some of these templates, and you can just fill them in when you're over there and just get someone to sign it. And that'll be a fine documentation for getting reimbursed. Okay. These are the interview questions I was talking about. that we recommend you going over with your organization, asking more about the type of beneficiaries they serve, what are the goals of their organization, how do they receive their funding, questions about the agriculture in country, like crops grown. It'll just be good to get a more holistic picture of their operations. So this is here for your reference, but we might revise it together with our instructor who's doing the participatory interviews session. All of this is available. Everything, the PowerPoints I'm going to post are under the Trellis seminar subheading. So here is the document that has the learning objectives and reflection questions for each class. This is still kind of a draft because we're still working out with some instructors to give us the learning objectives and reflection questions, but we'll make sure it's complete before a session meets. So for instance, next week, we're going to talk about communicating with your organization. And so you can kind of follow along here with what the topic is for each week. And then all the PowerPoints and any resources that we share during the seminar will be available in this link, which will take you to a Google Drive, and you can view it by session. So for example, you'll see here is the PowerPoint I went through and then notes from the session. So this is the monthly report, and we'll, oh, sorry, that's my, the monthly report actually is up here under reporting, and it's over here on the left under project monitoring, and we'll ask you to submit a monthly report where you put what month it is, say it's January, your organization should be on this drop-down list. You'll tell us how many hours you worked on this month, what you did, and then you'll save. And then we will manually add up the hours you've done to keep track of how you're doing as far as getting to 100. This is the pre-seminar survey that we'll ask you to complete before next week. I'm just asking you to rank your experience and knowledge on the seminar topics, and then the post surveys here as well. Okay, so going back to the dashboard, we're almost done going through these resources, and then we're going to transition in our presentation. So I showed you the monthly report. There's a template for the monitoring and evaluation matrix that you'll complete with your organization. The post-travel report is here, and then the final report. We'll talk more about the communications content next week, but that will be more about branding, how to tell your story, guidelines for creating videos and taking photos. And then this is available also for your reference. It's our fact sheet for this year. So it just talks more about, okay, what is Trellis? How does it work? And then what are the projects for this year? We're gonna actually compile all the fact sheets from the last 6 years. So you have them in one place in case you wanna reference or connect with other Trellis students who've worked in your country or with the same organization or done a similar project. There are two things here, advice from previous Trellis fellows. I encourage you to go through this. We've been tracking comments for many years about how students have, what their experience has been, and if they have advice for future students. So I think this is a really useful document, and I encourage you to go through this. And it's all anonymous feedback, but I think it helps to know people have done the exact same thing you're about to do, and they have really good advice to share. There are more travel tips from the UC Davis Global Health, and then 2 more information resources down here that I think will be useful for people's projects depending on your topic. I'm not going to go through this right now because we have my colleagues here to talk about the Horticulture Innovation Lab technologies, but you'll have references to all the links if they speak about something that you're interested in. You can follow up on it. A list of the projects from the Horticulture Innovation Lab that are non-trellis, and then a bunch here for post-harvest. So UC Davis has a post-harvest website. We have the Post-Harvest Education Foundation that has a bunch of guides and training materials and manuals. And I know we have at least 1/3 of this year's projects are on post-harvest, so we tried to put some more resources in here. So just encourage you to go through this, see what might be relevant depending on your topic. And then the last one is just on small business development, since a lot of these organizations are helping to train farmers to become entrepreneurs and really shift into generating income with their farm products. So this is my last slide, and then I'm going to hand it over. But things to remember: keep your receipts. It might feel stressful if this is your first time working internationally or consulting with an organization. You're probably much more well suited than you think you are. So just try to stay confident, keep your cool. Sometimes things like internationally, it can make some people nervous, but we've chosen you because we think you're really capable people. Contact information is here to keep in touch, our email, and then the office phone number. And then for next week, what we'd like you to do is complete the contact information tab in PyStar. So that's, I'll go here. It's under reporting, and it's on the left here, background and demographics. So we'll just ask you to complete your name, your gender, your contact information, your address, just so we have this on file. So that'll be pretty quick. We'll send you the link to the pre-seminar survey if you could do that before we meet next time. Review the contents of the dashboard that I went through. And I know that might take some time, so that's kind of an ongoing assignment. It's just as you go through your project, try to look through all these things. They're here because we think they're really important and want to make sure everyone has access to them. And come to us with any questions. Send us an email and we'll make sure that our responses to your questions get shared with everyone, because I'm sure some people have similar questions. And then we'll ask you before next session to actually watch a video recording from last year's Communicating with Your Organization. We had a great UC Davis staff person who specializes in international extension. He led that session. And so it's less than an hour. So if you can just watch that video ahead of time and come prepared with questions, that will serve as the foundation for next week's presentation. We'll also have the Trellis alumni from last year coming back to present on their experience communicating with their organization. So it'll help if you watch this and come with questions for them and for us as well. So here are the reflection questions. No need to write responses, just something to think about if you have any questions about what I've gone over, if you feel like you know where to look for resources. And then I'm gonna turn it over to my colleagues to talk about the Horticulture Innovation Lab projects and technologies, unless anyone has any more questions right now. Okay. Asha. Also, I don't know who's moving.
Okay. Yeah, if everyone can just make sure that they're muted one more time because they're getting some funky noises. How did I? Okay, present. Oh, good. Okay. So I'm going to start going over other resources that you have at your disposal from the Horticulture Innovation Lab. So I'm going to go over other non-Trellis Fund projects that we're currently funding. And this is mainly for your own information. So if you're working on a similar project and you have questions, we can always potentially put you in touch with a PI on one of our other projects who might have helpful guidance for you. Or Lauren and I can try to help you ourselves. Knowledge that we have from one of these other projects. And then after I'm done speaking about these projects, we'll have a couple other of my colleagues at the Horticulture Innovation Lab talk about different technologies that we have at the Horticulture Innovation Lab that are also at your disposal. So if you, and they're mainly around post-harvest, but if any of these technologies seem applicable to your project or your organization in general, maybe not your project, but the organization seems like they could benefit in some way from one of these technologies, you can also feel free to contact us about potentially utilizing those technologies. Okay, so to start, we currently have Trellis Fund projects this year in Ghana, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and Nepal. Unfortunately, in Ghana and Ethiopia, we don't have any other non-Trellis Fund projects currently, but starting in Tanzania, we do. We have a post-harvest capacity building project that's currently headed up by Kansas State University. And this project basically ensures that local stakeholders have the tools that they need to reduce post-harvest losses. And we also launched our DryCard franchise there, which my other colleagues will talk about what that is, but it's basically a post-harvest technology. And in Rwanda, we have another project on reducing post-harvest losses in Rwanda that's headed up by Agribusiness Associates. And this project also makes sure local stakeholders have the technologies and tools that they need to reduce post-harvest losses, specifically of tomatoes, green chilies, bananas, and orange fleshed sweet potatoes. This project is currently employing 3 technologies on post-harvest: our DryCard, solar, chimney dryer, and CoolBot, which we'll hear more about. Okay, and then in Uganda, we have an irrigation project that's headed up by a UC Davis researcher here, Kate Scow, and she's working with farmers to develop small-scale irrigation and water management technologies for Uganda and also applicable to East Africa as a whole. And then in Nepal, we have a project promoting conservation agriculture for vegetable growers in Cambodia and Nepal, just headed up by North Carolina A&T State University. And the project goal there is to introduce and test conservation agriculture, drip irrigation, and rainwater harvesting. And this project also uses a tuk-tuk bot, which is basically a tuk-tuk or a motorized rickshaw that carries ice boxes so farmers can sell fresh produce. And we also, I have a link here, which links to all of our projects. So if you're one of the people in Ghana and Ethiopia, for instance, you can look through other projects in other regions and see if maybe there are projects with similar goals to yours, and yeah, contact us about those as well. Okay, and I'll actually wait to take questions until we can have my other colleagues talk about the technologies. So I'll have you guys come up. So this is Angelos and Anthony from the Horticulture Innovation Lab, and they will be talking, okay, awesome, about the technologies that we have here at the Horticulture Innovation Lab. Okay. File slideshow. Yeah, that would be great. Oh, awesome. Okay, perfect. Okay.
All right.
Should we have them set up?
Is there a camera?
Yeah.
Is it working? Should we stand or sit? Maybe we could.
Whatever you're more comfortable. Yeah.
I
Yeah, we could
and
sit maybe.
We could sit. Yeah, I don't know.
Feel free to introduce yourselves.
Yeah. So my name is Angelos. I'm the International Postharvest Specialist of the Horticulture Innovation Lab.
And I'm Anthony. I'm an analyst for the Horticulture Innovation Lab.
So we'll talk to you today about the technologies we've been implementing around the world. And I'm going to start with the most important problem, which is cooling. The lack of cooling in the developed world is pretty much everywhere. And by reducing, you can reduce the food losses tremendously by introducing low-cost cooling alternatives. So here is a shed that's made out of like materials that can be found on the left side in many countries around the world. And the way it works is that these are wetted, and by evaporation, the temperature inside that shed drops. On the right, you can see what we call the ZEC. That's the zero energy cooling chamber. It was developed in India by Professor Roy. And the way it works is it has a double brick wall, and in between the wall, I'm gonna have to stand up. Sorry. You have sand that is wetted all the time, and then there is space in there to put 2 to 4 crates of produce. Then you put a burlap sack and you cover it, you wet that sack too, and then by evaporation, the temperature of that chamber drops by up to 10 degrees Celsius. This is very good for dry climates like California, but for places that are humid like Honduras, Thailand, it doesn't work very well. And here is the way it works. So you have, you need water supply, clean water constantly running to these bricks. The bricks are wetted, the water evaporates, and the temperature drops. The CoolBot. How many of you have heard about it? One? Okay. So the CoolBot is a very neat device that was developed here in the United States by a farmer. And the way it works is that it is attached to a household air conditioner. Imagine this air conditioner. The CoolBot is a small device that it can be bought for about $300. And what it does is it tricks the air conditioner to work longer. And this way it can drop the temperature down to 35 degrees Fahrenheit, 2 degrees Celsius. The way it does it is you attach a heater that comes out of the CoolBot with the air conditioner thermostat, like that, using aluminum foil. Then you set the temperature here that you want the room to be at, and the CoolBot will heat the temperature sensor, making the air conditioner think that it's too warm in there, so it keeps on working. By doing that, it can drop the temperature down to 35 degrees Fahrenheit. Many people ask, why don't you just set the temperature of the air conditioner to 35? These units are made for humans. I mean, no human wants to live in a 35-degree room, so they go down to 65. But by using this CoolBot, we trick it to drop the temperature down to 35.
So where can you buy the CoolBot?
Online, Amazon.
Like in Amazon, really?
Yeah. So this is an example of how much a CoolBot operated cold room costs in Bangladesh, where I'm working on a project. So you see the concrete is about $400. Then the most expensive piece is the panels, the prefabricated polyurethane panels that are used to insulate the room, to make the room. The air conditioner, a good inverter unit runs from $800 to $1,000. Then you need a good generator for backup in cases, you know, power outages. For about $550, you need to pay an installment cost for installation cost for the electricity connection, and it comes up to $7,500. The electricity cost is pretty low. It's about $300 to $400 a year. Let's move on. How's the time? Yeah. All right. Okay, so let's go back. I'm going to talk. So buying, installing a commercial cooling system is about $20,000 to $30,000 minimum. And a big problem is that even if you install it, you bring someone from Europe or the US to install this unit. If it breaks down, nobody in the country can fix it because it's, I mean, it's something that's not that they use every day. However, air conditioners are used pretty much everywhere in the world. So even a technician in the village where the CoolBot unit is installed can go and fix the air conditioner for you for like cheap. So you don't need to bring in people all the time to fix the cooling system. Let's go to the next one. This is a diagram of a cabinet dryer. Has any of you seen a cabinet dryer before? Imagine this is made out of wood. It's covered with clear plastic, and then it opens from the one side. You can put trays of product in there. There is a black metal heat collector, which is covered by a glass or a clear plastic. The sunlight warms the air in here. As we know, warm air rises, so it's making its way through the product that removes the humidity to the atmosphere and so forth. This is pretty good compared to open air drying. It has many problems. For example, when you put your product, the warm, dry air is here, but as it takes humidity off the product that's up here takes a long time to dry or never dry, so you need to rotate it. Also, it has a limited capacity. So some retired professors came up with an idea of what we call the UC Davis chimney dryer. And here you see an example of the dryer in Bangladesh and in California, here in Davis. Here's how it works. Imagine there is a long 4 meter long table made out of wood covered with black plastic. You can click and then it's going to start. Oh, like just advance. So we use a clear plastic and we make a tunnel, and the product is sitting on trays here. The sun warms the air that's trapped under that plastic, and as we know, warm air rises. Over here, there's a window opening in this chimney. So the air makes its way through the product to the chimney and out to the atmosphere. This has an effect to draw dry air from the atmosphere, which is heated up, removes humidity, and escapes. It's a very neat design. It can be built for about $100 to $200, depending on the location. And it can dry products from a few hours to a couple of days. It cuts the drying time from, more than 50%.
Is that compared to open air drying?
Yeah, compared to open air drying and the cabinet dryer. I think we have an example of the two different dryers. So this is how the trays look like. They're made out of food grade mesh, plastic or metal, and you double stack them. And then you put a pole in the middle, and then you drape over the clear plastic. Here's a cross section. This is a table covered with black polyethylene plastic. You put 2 wooden blocks to hold the trays, and then you put the trays with the product on top. Then a batten to support the pole and the pole in the middle. You drape the clear plastic, and you secure it on both sides. For example, 3 years ago, there was a USAID project in Uzbekistan where they dried apricots, and it was a huge success. People went back, the scientists went back a few years later, and they saw these dryers being improved actually for apricots and being all over the country. Here's a picture that I took in Bangladesh. They're drying bananas and mangoes. And here's a comparison of the two dryers. The data is a little old, but it hasn't changed much. We spent $40 to build a chimney dryer and about $60 to build the cabinet dryer. You see that the food capacity is about twice as much for the improved chimney dryer design. And the time it takes for the fruit to reach 10% moisture content, when you have 11-hour days, it's only 2 days for the chimney dryer and 5.5 days for the cabinet dryer. Crunching the numbers, you get $7.3 per kilogram day versus $26.6 per kilogram day for the cabinet dryer. And the the air temperature leaving the dryer from the chimney or the opening is about 15 degrees higher for the chimney dryer versus only 9 degrees for the cabinet dryer. Also, it's very important to stress that the air velocity, how fast air moves past the product, is important for drying. So the higher the air velocity, the faster the drying. So you see here we have 6 times higher airspeed in the chimney dryer compared to the cabinet dryer. Excuse me. What are the advantages of the chimney dryer? As I mentioned, it's low cost. It achieves higher drying speeds. it can work even under unfavorable conditions, like if it's a cloudy day, it's gonna achieve some drying. You can use it for multiple purposes. You can dry fruits, vegetables, fish, meat. You can use local materials, like in Thailand, for example, they don't have wood, or it's expensive. They use plastic PVC pipes. So you can, modify the design. You don't need to have any electricity or any tools to make it. Just, a local carpenter can help you, and you'll have it built in a day. You can move it, like during the rainy season, you just store it, and then when the sun comes out, you bring it out. You protect your product by building such a dryer from sudden rains. And by covering your product, animals and birds cannot access the product and damage it. Also, flies cannot reach the product. If they get in the tunnel, they die. It's too hot for them. Or what's fun is that the smell comes out of the chimney, so they get confused. They go up there. They never get in the tunnels. So we're hoping to do some future experiments in Bangladesh. We're working with the university there, which is drying local fruits, vegetables, and fish, and we're comparing it with open air drying. We're also studying the effect of the dryer to the nutritional value of dried crops, and we are running some experiments right now to determine how big we can make the dryer, because one of the requests is that we want it to be bigger for commercial uses. But for now, we're using the standard size of 4 meters long, 2 meters high. And then I'm gonna let Anthony talk about the dry chain.
Okay. So after using a technology like the solar chimney dryer, how do you know when your product is dry enough and safe to basically store, to eat, or sell to the market? And a lot of ways that farmers and growers do this right now is that they look at their product and just eyeball it, or they'll grab a handful and just measure by taste or touch, or how it feels. And basically they're kind of taking a smart guess that their product is dry and safe. So what two UC Davis researchers have developed is the DryCard. And the DryCard is basically a simple way for farmers to indicate whether their products are indeed dry enough and safe to sell or store. And it does this by indicating the level of relative humidity within a certain container. And yeah, so right now, a big problem in many of the countries that we work with is aflatoxin. And this toxin is produced when mold begins to grow, and mold begins to grow after if it is above 65% relative humidity. So we created the DryCard to basically easily indicate the level of relative humidity within your container. And right now there are other tools that can be used to measure the same thing, but most of these products are usually electronic. They require batteries, they require training, and the farmers that we work with, they really don't have the money to buy these electronics or really have the capacity to be trained to use these and then keep calibrating them. So the DryCard is an easy way, an easy alternative to use. You basically store it inside a container of your dry products. It could be dried fruit, vegetables. Some people have contacted us to use it for their coffee production, even like meats like venison, jerky, anything that you don't want to get mold contamination in. And it does this by, as I said, measuring the relative humidity within the container. And as your relative humidity increases, the card goes from blue, which is dry, to wet, to pink. And so yeah, it's basically just this card that we print out. We have a color scale that reads from dry to wet, and that bar you see in the middle indicates that is 65%. And we laminate this entire card to protect it from damage. And the cost for this is very low. So this means that most of the farmers that we work with can't afford to buy these. And it costs about 10 to 25 cents to make. And a lot of the people that we are working with to sell these sell it for about $1. So this kind of adds incentive for some of these farmers to manufacture these and sell these for a profit to their communities.
How large of a volume can you put these cards in? Because I would imagine relative humidity is going to change if you're talking about like a ton of product.
Mm-hmm. So what we recommend to do is if you let's say you have a large plot of land and you want to test that, right? So you would just grab a few samples from certain spots and you can grind it up and put it in a airtight jar, and you'll just put the card in there, leave it in there for 30 to 60 minutes. But if you want a higher accuracy, then you would leave it in there for the whole day. And that's how you would be able to measure large quantities. But yeah, so you wouldn't be able to put this in a large crate, and it wouldn't be that accurate.
In a silo, for example.
Mm-hmm, in a silo.
But how would you guesstimate, I guess, the size of said acceptable size box to measure? Is it like, you know, an Nalgene bottle, like that gallon bottle container over there, like sort of a good idea? So if we were to use this product to say, you know, you're not going to get an accurate reading, you put it in that size thing.
Mm-hmm. So we recommend just like, you know, those mason jar, the size of a mason jar, or a Ziploc bag.
Okay.
Nothing too large, because you want an accurate reading.
And then
so does the atmospheric conditions with that yard is kept matters? Like if it's kept in sunlight, or it should be kept in shade, or what?
Oh, what are the atmospheric conditions in order for it to be accurate? Or
Yeah, so just as long as the card is in an airtight container, and it can be in sunlight, just as long as the strip doesn't, the humidity indicator strip doesn't come into contact with water. That's the main part.
And the way it works is that you have an equilibrium of relative humidity. After you close a jar, the humidity of the product will equilibrate with the humidity of the air. So the reading that you get from the air is the humidity that's in the dry product, pretty much. Sorry.
So it has to be a sealed container.
Sealed container, yeah. Because it could be humid outside, and then your dry products would be picking up that humidity. Right. You want to put this in a sealed container in your dry products and wait just 30 to 60 minutes. And if it's looking more pink, then your products have the potential to grow mold and then produce aflatoxins. But yeah, if you keep your products under that bar, under that 65%, and this is for all products, doesn't matter if you're working with seeds or dry vegetables or even meat, it's for all products. It will, if you keep it under 65%, then mold and aflatoxins won't be produced. Yeah.
Do you have a card to pass around? Yeah, sorry.
So I have a card right here to pass around, and right now we are just trying to identify local businesses, entrepreneurs that would be willing to manufacture and then market the DryCard to their communities. And our goal is basically to use this product as kind of a gateway for them to start selling products that pertain to the post-harvest dry chain specifically. So yeah, so if if you think anybody would be interested in maybe becoming another distributor for the DryCard, you can feel free to contact me, and then we can kind of work with them and see what we can do, and maybe they can start becoming a distributor for their country or region.
I have a question. So do you guys recommend that we try and incorporate these technologies as much as possible into our Trellis Fund projects?
Yeah. So the question was just if we're recommending that the student fellows integrate these technologies into your projects. I brought my colleagues here today to share more, just as kind of a menu. So like, here are other technologies and resources that the Horticulture Innovation Lab has available, has expertise in, and if it fits your project, like, we certainly encourage you to bring them on. Even if it doesn't fit your project, I think as you interview your organizations and figure out more about the different projects and work that they do, there is the opportunity you could bring it to your organization, even if it's not directly related to your project. So this is more like, here's a menu, you can share the list of resources with your organization, and some of them might find something interesting, and then you can just kind of connect them, and it's just an additional resource to offer, but it's not like mandatory.
Yeah, we can share with you blueprints, how to make the dryer or DryCards
yeah.
To take with you when you go to the country.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I would be happy to help you during when you're there. If you have any questions on how to build the dryer, I'll be more than happy to connect with you.
Thanks, Angelos.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? I know we're coming close to being at the hour.
Just accessing the materials from today once we get on to
PyStar. Yeah, you should receive an email by the end of this week. I'm working with our website, with our PyStar developer, to get everyone access.
Cool.
So just keep an eye out in your email for how to access your account, and you might have to create a new password and things like that.
Okay.
I had a question about passports.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to renew mine. Is that something that's paid for, or that we should have reimbursed, or is that something we're doing on our own?
Yes, we can pay if you need to get your passport renewed.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions?
I have a question. If I have to travel to get my visa, will that be covered?
That's a good question. So probably case by case, look into what your visa requirements are, and if you find you have to go to another city to do it in person or something like that, just shoot us an email and I'll work with our administrator to figure out if that's something we can pay for. I would imagine so, because it's associated with your project, but just send me an email and I can look into it.
Okay,
more specifically. Yeah, of course. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much, everyone. We'll be in touch via email with more information and getting you on PyStar so you can have assignments done before next week. We'll meet again, same time next Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, you too.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.